Go 3, 2, and 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. Today we got a fun one. We got a flight of persuasion. We should have done this on St. Patty's Day yesterday. We could have had a flight of green beers sitting in front of us.
Yeah, because I just have a fridge full of green beer laying around.
Hey, you got food coloring, right?
Yeah,
you can make it happen.
I don't know how you dye a stout green. Seems like that would take an awful lot of food coloring.
It would. Might affect the taste a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
But needless to say, we will the day after St. Patty's Day, we've got some great topics to discuss. We're going to be talking about selling with stories.
Yep.
You've got some things on Ikea, how they make you buy more stuff.
Yeah. So Ikea, we've got aliens, we've got I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say overpriced, but we've got a not very expensive. We got an expensive book. I'm going to throw it out there, see what people think about it. So, does some cool things. So it's a kind of a gimmick type book.
Great lesson if you want to market a book
as a luxury,
really, as a premium product. This is the way to do it. This is the way to do it.
Obviously, not something you want to do if you're trying to make a bestseller, probably. But who knows? If it ever catches the right viral moment, who knows?
Yeah,
but we'll talk about that. So we've got just a kind of a flight. We'll be heaviest on the selling with story, and then we'll hit these others kind of quickly.
Yep.
Toward the second half of the show. Mm-hmm. But first, before we do that, we got some beverages from Ohio.
One that is, well, I don't know about yours, but mine is poorly lacking in advertising and marketing and promotion of any sort.
Yeah, mine's not great either. But we got these beers from Rivalry Brews. They're not a sponsor or anything, but if you're like us and you have a hard time finding something new to drink, the rivalrybrews.com, you can get a bunch of beers that are from the kind of Ohio Midwest area. Mm-hmm. So that's where we've been getting the last 6 episodes or so.
Yeah.
Worth of beers have come from there. So you just go on their site, hit beer styles, and whatever you're fancy, IPAs, ales, blondes, pilsners, Belgians, porters, stouts, whatever. They're all there. So it's a pretty cool site to kind of get a craft brew that's not in your area.
Something for everyone.
Yeah. So what are you having? You're having Unplugged Brewing, right? Tell us about that, Jonathan.
I wish I could. They have failed to. So this one is from Unplugged Brewing Company. This is a Buckeyes peanut butter porter.
Hold it up to the screen there so
our folks can see it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure. I don't know if this is false advertising, but I am told on their can this is 7.9% ABV.
Okay.
Yet when I go to the Untapped website, because I can't find any information on their website because all they have is a buy button with no description of this beer. So I went over to Untapped, and they're telling me it's 6.4% ABV. So we'll say
somewhere in there.
Split the difference and say somewhere in between.
Somewhere in there, 7%-ish.
Yeah.
What is a Buckeye? I know it's a nut, right? A Buckeye.
It's a nut.
Is it like a giant acorn or something? I don't really.
That's
it. Without the cap on it.
Exactly.
That's what it looks like. It looks like a giant acorn that doesn't have the little beret on top of it.
The absolute worst mascot ever invented. I don't know who came up with the idea of, hey, we're going to have a nut for our mascot.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I mean, do you eat them? Like, I don't know what they're used for. Apparently, you're about to drink one, so
I'm about to drink it. Yeah. Exactly.
I guess that's kind of a nutty taste as beers, what you're about to have. I don't know. We'll find out.
It's a pea nut. I don't know if it's a pea buck nut.
Yeah. Okay.
Or Buckeye.
It's got pictures of Buckeyes on it on the can.
It does.
So,
But
All right,
this is a just to give you a description. It is a peanut butter and cocoa porter. I can't wait because those are two of
Peanut
my
butter.
favorite things.
Yeah,
You
it's
like
good.
peanut butter?
It's like a Reese's cup in a can. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
That's right.
All right.
So
Well,
can't go wrong.
mine's from Masthead Brewing Company in Cleveland, Ohio, and it is a single origin coffee stout.
Mm-hmm.
So this is pretty regularly one of my favorite types of beers is a coffee stout.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like a good coffee stout. This says we partnered with our friends at Six Shooter Coffee to bring you this mashup of our two favorite beverages. The lightly roasted Ethiopian Guji coffee beans used in this beer bring flavors and aromas of berry and cocoa that pair perfectly with the roasty notes from the stout. 6.9%, 30 IBUs. So we'll see.
Sounds delicious.
Guess we don't have to write our scores since we're doing different stuff. So we'll just.
That's all right.
All right. Cheers.
Both nice and dark. Let me hit that button here.
There it is.
I got to tell you, the aroma when I first put this up, this sounds or smells amazing. It sounds amazing too. Wow.
It's not the best face.
You know, if you're going to call yourself a peanut butter chocolate porter, then I would think you would have some taste of peanut butter in there, but I don't taste much of any peanut butter at all. Well, it's mostly dark chocolate.
In defense, it just says peanut, right? It doesn't say peanut butter.
This says peanut butter and cocoa porter at the very bottom.
Huh.
Buckeyes peanut butter and cocoa porter. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why they decided not to write a description for it. It was like, didn't turn out quite the way we thought. Send it on. Ship it.
That's right.
There's a lesson. There's a lesson there too. Just ship it.
Just ship it. Well, yeah. I got a lesson for them.
don't ship it twice.
The 5-pint rating.
Yeah. All right. Well, mine's pretty good. It's interesting. I don't know if it's biased, but when I read that and they said with coffee beans, let's see, and aromas of berry and cocoa, the berry was kind of shocking, but I do think I taste it. But now I don't know if I was primed to taste it or if it's really there. So I'm confused. But anyway, still, it's good. Mine's good.
Okay. Give us
so is yours just not good, or is it just a letdown because you were expecting something else?
It's okay, but there's going to get a little bit of a deduction because I don't taste peanut butter.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, you can't say you're a peanut butter beer and then not give you peanut butter.
That's part of it. I mean, I got to take all the factors in. I got to say, I looked at their website, no description whatsoever. Yeah. Tiny, their can's not that overly impressive in terms of description. No copy whatsoever. And I got to tell you, Buckeyes too. I'm not a big fan of Buckeyes either. So you got a lot of things working against them right now.
Ooh, this is gonna be rough.
I'm going to give this one. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 2.7 on this one.
Wow,
2.7. Yeah, it's okay. It's not very good.
Just above 50% there on the scale. So
2.7.
Mine is actually good. It's what I would expect a coffee stout to be. It does have a little bit of that something going on. But it's almost, I think it's more the Ethiopian coffee now that I think about it, because it did say Ethiopian, which has a little bit more that acidic taste to it. So I think that's what I'm tasting. So I'm going to give this a 4.3. It's pretty good.
Ooh, 4.3.
Yeah. Got a good, rich coffee taste. So yeah, I like it. Like it a lot. I'm glad I got 2 of these.
Oh man, I gotta look in my stash to see. I grabbed these first thing this morning, brought them over to the office. So I think I got that one too in the pantry. So I'll double check.
Yeah, we'll just forget my rating then.
I'll erase it from my mind.
Yes.
Zap me, wipe me clean. I don't know. Right. I didn't hear that. All right.
So we're going to be talking. Do I have this? No, I don't have anything pulled up for this one. It's all right.
So yeah, let's jump in. We're going to talk. I guess we'll talk story selling to begin with from a book called "Sell with Story." I think Sean and I teased this book. I'm going to hit a couple of highlights from me that stand out
Okay.
in terms of selling, and this is really the whole purpose of this book. The author's got a couple of books related to stories. Paul Smith, he's got one that you referenced, "Lead with Story,"
Right. Which is,
and
I think that was his first book.
yep,
And
exactly.
it was about leading like a business or an organization, kind of from a CEO or management
Mhm.
place, and
Right.
how to use stories to get buy-in and all of those kind of things,
Absolutely.
which is
So,
obviously an important part of persuasion and things
mhm,
like that, motivating your team, persuading your team. But today we're going to be talking about his second book, which is
yes,
selling.
selling with story and building rapport, which is one of the most important things if you're doing B2B selling, face-to-face selling, is to have a story. Okay, you don't
Hmm.
go in and just sell features and benefits. You don't sell all of the. You don't use the traditional means of selling. Today, you've got to build rapport before you offer the value, and he's got it broken down. There's different stories that you can incorporate into your arsenal, and I recommend anybody out there that is in face-to-face or B2B sales to come up with like your own portfolio or your own little arsenal of stories out there that you can use in different situations.
Well, I'm
um
excited to hear this and hear your take, because this is one of the things that I struggled with when I did in-home sales.
mhm.
Um, there were guys that were in the same company I was in selling the same product. And these guys could go in and build rapport for like 2 hours before they even
Yeah.
started their pitch.
Mhm.
And like, I mean, there was this one guy, he would go into people's houses, 15, 20 minutes. He's doing the rapport building and warm up.
Yeah.
He'd use whatever's on the walls or whatever. And then he would literally just get up from the kitchen table and he'd be like, "So where's the glasses?" And they'd be like, "That cabinet over there." He's like, "Great. Ice in the freezer?" They're like, "Yeah." It's like, "What do we got to drink? Y'all want anything?" I mean, the dude would just take over. It was
Take over the
amazing. It was
house.
amazing to watch. And they just kept going with it.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
Oh,
But
no, no, that's
but
and he probably was very charismatic too to I
he's
mean,
very
wasn't he?
charismatic, good with
Yeah,
stories.
yeah,
That was something I always struggled with. So I
right.
would definitely need what you're talking about to have a set of stories. And that's something I
Mhm.
didn't know back then. I was in my late 20s at that point.
Yep.
I just didn't have that arsenal of stuff back then. So
Well, I think that anybody and you it's hard to come up with these stories on the fly, and I would recommend anybody out there because where people are forgetful, especially as you get older, is to either keep a record on your iPhone. I use Evernote a lot. If you can use the audio, you can use the audio recording app on Evernote. I love Evernote because I keep everything. My whole brain is in Evernote.
yeah,
And so all of the things like passwords and things that I need to remember are secure on Evernote. If it ever goes upside, if it ever crashes or Evernote goes under, I'm
yeah,
in trouble because I
yeah,
rely heavily on Evernote, but I put a lot of I'll record like little notes to myself. I'll put stories. I'll put ideas for books and things like that. Those are all separated on that. But if you're in sales, it's a good to have a good like portfolio or a little journal of stories that happen in your life that you can utilize and that you can relate to certain situations. Find out how those stories relate to what you would you would be marketing. So
yeah.
and here's an idea. He gives a list of um, five different stories. It is turn this off here. The first is a why I do what I do story, right? Why, we always start with why. The that classic book is start with why you're doing, why you're in the industry that you're in, why you're an advocate for the product or the service that you are. And origin stories are wonderful. People love origin stories. I was listening to Dan Kennedy this week. He says he's one of those big fans of comics. He's like, read comics, go out and read a whole bunch of comics. Every superhero or every, comic book
Oh, comic
character.
books. I thought you meant like comedians.
Oh no. Well, you probably get some lessons from
Yeah,
those too,
I'm sure you could.
but yeah, the old, the old classic Marvel comics. If you go
Yeah.
to nowadays, used to you could go to a, bookstore or I guess you could probably still get them at a bookstore, but at a drugstore or something like that. Nowadays, you have to almost go to a comic store. But the idea is to, every person, every origin, there's a story for everyone, every
Right.
superhero, how they became who they are today.
Right.
And so sometimes you have to create those origin stories of why you were in. And a lot of, if you look at all the great marketers, the Dan Kennedy, the people that were so good at speaking, Zig Ziglar,
Mm,
every one of them would tell their origin stories, how they got into the business, right?
yep.
And those are so memorable because and they were just so, I mean, it was like off the tongue every time. They could just tell the same stories about how they
Yeah.
became who they were.
Another one that comes to mind that's more recent is Brendan Burchard.
Oh yeah,
He's
that's a
got two
great story.
stories that he just tells over and over. He's got the car
Yeah,
wreck,
the car
you
wreck
know,
story. Yeah.
and then he's standing on the hood and he's like, "Did I love?
Hmm.
Did I matter?"
Yeah.
And then he's got the one where he's in his room, his wife's in bed, and the bills are piled over
Yeah.
the top of her, literally under the weight of his bills. Like
Yeah.
those two stories are like
Those are memorable.
his key, like
Hmm.
that's his origin story, and then his like turning point story.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Every good speaker, I would say, if you're, obviously if you're a professional speaker, always listen to their stories because every great speaker out there has an origin story of why they're doing what they do. Tony Robbins, he's got his own story.
yep,
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, he had a poor dad. Then he had a rich dad. His poor dad told him this, and his rich dad
yep,
said this, so that's his own personal story that he uses, and it's in everything. I
yeah.
mean, books, everything.
Yeah, it's
Um,
funny. Like, yeah, I remember him. He's got the story of when they tried to make nickels. Him and his buddy
yeah.
tried to,
Hmm.
pour and make nickels. And
Oh yeah.
Tony Robbins has got the story when he's overweight and he was
Oh
frustrated and
yeah.
he went out and ran for like 2 hours straight or something. Like,
Hmm.
which is his turning
Absolutely.
point, kind of his
Right.
turning point story, rock
Yep.
bottom story.
Dave Ramsey
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
He went bankrupt,
yep,
and he over leveraged himself in real estate. The bank called his loans. He lost everything, drove
yep,
around in a beater for like, 2 years. People made fun of him, but he was laser focused on what he wanted to do. He's like, I'm not doing that again. And so
right,
tells a great story. All
yeah,
of those have origin stories. And so even in sales or marketing, if you're doing any kind of sales, you need to have the origin story. Another one is um, I'll tell you when I can help you story. So
hmm,
those are always good because sometimes you can't help somebody, right? Sometimes if you go at sales from a physician standpoint with that physician mindset that you're looking at that, you're making an assessment, and that's how you should be selling. You shouldn't try to sell your product before you know the diagnosis. You got to get the diagnosis first, right?
right,
So you tell them when you can help them, and you incorporate a story of when you can help them. And I use these a lot in my industry. Here's what I can help you with, and here's what I'm not going to be able to, because that's going to end the conversation right there. And here's some examples. Had a conversation with someone this morning on a podcast that was actually a potential customer, or potential client afterward. And I shared a story. Here's where I helped someone. He was a manufacturer. He owned a manufacturing business up in the Northeast. We talked about how to cost savings with raw materials. He explained his situation, and I said, here's a similar situation that I dealt with about 3 months ago. A manufacturer down in Miami that was going through a very similar thing to what you're dealing with, and looking to lower the weight of their product, the cost of their product, because shipping rates are going up. Here's an idea for you, because they were in the same situation. Now, when you always say, here's a similar situation to you, that's where their ears perk up. This guy is kind of in a similar situation to what you're going through.
Right.
Because
And
that
and it's a form of social proof because it's something you did for somebody else who might be
Mhm.
like them. And
Yep.
and one of the things, one of the greatest kind of lessons I've learned in copy or in marketing in general is the idea that everybody's asking this question, whether they know it or not, subconsciously
Mhm.
or not. Am I the type of person that buys something like this?
Yeah.
Like that's the question always going on in a buyer's mind or
Yep.
potential buyer's mind.
Exactly.
Am I the type of person that buys a product like this? Like,
Right.
in other words, is it right for me? So when you say, "Hey, here's a similar story," or "Here's a
Mhm.
similar situation," it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
somebody else has already tried this out.
Right.
He wouldn't be telling me about it if it didn't work." Like, there's so
Absolutely.
much goes on, like in an instant when you say that,
Mhm.
that maybe he's cherry picking, maybe he's not, but worked for at least one other person. So there's a lot of assumptions that start taking place and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. And notice I didn't say, here's how I helped someone. I didn't jump right into what I did
Yeah.
right away, trying to say, here's what I did. I
Yeah.
said, here's what somebody who's similar to yourself, he had a similar situation.
Yeah.
And
That's a
here's
great
what
point.
we did. And I don't know if this will, the other thing is, I don't know if this will work for you, but it certainly worked for him. So you're not trying to you're not guaranteeing, but you're also saying, this worked in his situation. So you're letting them ultimately make the ultimate judgment to move forward, which,
Yeah. And if it's a complex sale, that's true, right? You don't know
yep,
the details yet.
right, exactly.
It
And
also
yeah, you don't
adds a
want to,
little bit of takeaway selling
exactly,
than people want
takeaways.
it. Like, I don't know if I can help you, but
Right.
they're like, what do you mean? You just told me this
Yep.
story. You got to help me.
Yeah, and takeaway sellings, we could do a whole episode on takeaway
Oh, for
selling
sure.
because I have and there's areas in industrial sales you should be doing it. And again, we go back to the thing where the guy says, well, that won't work in my business. Trust me, it'll work in every business,
Yeah.
and I've used it time and time again. Because the last thing you want to do is beg for business. You want to make your takeaway sellings where your prospect is trying to qualify themselves for what you do.
Right.
And that's another great lesson, is to say, well, before can move forward, I'll need you to send me some information and qualify yourself. Tell me a little more about what you do. Send me the specs on what you do, and we'll see if we can help you.
Right.
Um, it's done all the time. The high end salespeople, it's like an art.
Yeah.
making making customers qualify themselves.
Yeah. And
Um,
there's companies that have a whole series of hoops you have to jump through,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and especially in the luxury. So, in industrial sales, it's a little more, you can do it. It's a little more challenging in the high end type markets where luxury vehicles and, luxury real estate, it's, I mean, you can do it a whole lot there.
Yeah,
Like
I've
people
heard.
call.
I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that Ferrari, you cannot buy a new Ferrari on your first Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like you have to buy a used or like a
Yep.
2-year turn in
That's right.
before you can buy your
Right.
a new one, which is just like so counterintuitive.
But what does that do? It
Yeah, it's
makes
like,
you, yeah, it makes you want, it's that
yeah,
scarcity approach. It makes you want to be a part of that.
yeah, be a part of that
Part of
club.
that. Yep. Okay. It's another story he talks about is, I'll tell you when I've made a mistake story. So that's showing you your vulnerability, that you're not perfect, you're not over promising the moon. So you'll say, and I think it's a persuasive aspect because people like someone who you're kind of getting um, your vulnerabilities out to begin with, and kind of,
Right.
because so when you do that, they know you're not perfect, obviously. So here's where I've made a mistake in the past, and I'm as subject to making mistakes as anybody else. I've
Yeah.
dropped the ball. I'm not perfect, but I'll try to go to bat for you. If I've made a mistake, I'll try to come back, and here's a situation where, and there's, I have a catalog of those, stories where I can share. I told him it was going to be there in 3 days. The lead time was 3 days. And it was in a situation where It couldn't be for whatever reason. It couldn't go out for 7 days. So I was totally like the lead time that I'd promised is totally different. And I made a mistake because I assumed, and you don't ever assume. So talk about like, hey, I've made a mistake before, and I've told some of our customers. So what I've gotten in the habit of is saying, our lead time is 7 to 10 days, but oftentimes we can get it out before then. So
Yeah.
that's a better way of handling that. So
And it sets, when you do that, it sets realistic expectations.
mhm.
Because when you make a sale, I mean, the fact is they kind of put extra hopes on you
Yep,
that can be unrealistic sometimes
absolutely, yeah.
because they need a problem solved. You come
Mhm.
in, you're kind of the hero. So if you don't pull back a little bit, and that's different than the takeaway selling, this is kind of the businesses in hand. Like
Yeah,
it's a good way to kind of just not lower expectations, but set realistic expectations.
absolutely. Yep.
That's a good one. So you got origin story. I'll tell you when I can help you. I'll tell you
Mhm.
when I've made a mistake story. What's number 4?
Number 4 is I'll go to bat for you. How my company will go to bat for you story. So, and then the fifth one, because I've got an example of kind of two that fit within this. I'm not who you think I am story. Right. That's a
Ooh,
good one. I'm not
yeah.
who you think I am story.
I'm
So,
Batman.
so one of my I'm not who you think I am story I incorporate my podcast with a lot of my potential customers.
Hmm.
And what I do is like I'm not a person who's out here to win your business, but I also want to help you grow your business. And here's one way that we can do that. I'd like to give you some exposure because I do a podcast. And because I benefit from your growth. Ultimately, I want to see your company growing. And that's one of the things in marketing and companies. I've always asked them, what do you do? So I try to, instead of just asking them, how I can help you with my product, with my material, with whatever I'm selling. One of the lead questions I ask is, what are you doing to grow your business, and how, tell me about that. Tell me about how you're advertising your company, how you're promoting your company. And sometimes they'll give me feedback, and a lot of times they're like, well, how do you know this stuff? And I said, well, I study marketing too. I'm not just, going back to the I'm not who you think I am story. I'm
Right.
not just some salesperson out there.
Yeah.
I'm a marketer. I'm a podcasting expert. I do a number of industry podcast shows, and here's where I think I could help you grow your business. And that's not necessarily pitching them on sponsorships or advertising. Sometimes it's like, I'd love to invite you on the show. And so
Yeah.
that's a relationship, that's a rapport building type exercise. And I'll sometimes do that before offering to sell them something on the spot. You build that relationship first and foremost through that.
Well, it reminds me too. We've talked about the difference between Marvel and DC
Mhm.
characters and how the Marvel characters tend to have a little bit more depth and more
Absolutely. Yep.
kind of human, like regular Joe type
Yep.
attributes about them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that number 5 really kind of makes me think of that difference. Like, I'm not who you
Mhm.
think I am. Like, yes, I'm a superhero, but I'm also this guy who's, you know,
Yeah.
quirky or whatever, depending on the character. Like,
That's right.
so
Yeah.
I think it adds a little bit of dimension
Yeah.
because, like you said, when you walk in, you're a salesperson.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Excellent.
and
Absolutely.
all this stuff, all these barriers go up, all these defenses go up. So if you can start working in some of these stories that you're also a
Right.
podcaster in the
Oh yeah.
industry and you help grow other businesses, it's also why we drop things like, that you like to go camping and hiking, or you're a
Mhm.
Braves fan, or, you've
Absolutely.
told the
Yeah.
Braves story before, and
Yep.
um,
Yep.
the baseball stories, like
Mhm.
all that stuff
Yeah.
helps. And
It does.
there's so many versions of that fifth one that you could go in a lot of different
Oh
directions with
yeah.
it.
And a lot of times when I mention the podcasting, sometimes, they're like, "Whoa, I didn't know you did that." And I'll send them a link to it. And in some cases, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've heard this show before." They're like, they don't think about it at first. And then they'll
Right.
come back and say, "Wait a minute, I've heard this show before. I didn't know." And they're like, "I didn't know that was you."
Now
And
now you're a celebrity all of a
yeah,
sudden.
Well, I tell the story of me going to the some of these trade shows in my industry, and I show up, and you're thinking, a tiny niche podcast in this industry um, gives you, I mean, you're like you're the big fish in a small pond. You go to these trade shows and people are like, oh my gosh, there it is. Let me talk. They're always coming up to you and talking to you. And it's like, I hear your voice all the time and I just want to come up and shake your hand and meet you. And it's like, hey man, it's like cool. It's like
Yeah.
small time celebrity status right there. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Absolutely.
The other story I've got, and it ties into the I'll go to bat for you story. And I used to use this one all the time. And you got to come up with these, you got to craft these stories, but always called it the dirty shoe story. So I won an account one time based on the fact that I had dirty shoes. and what the story is, I went in helping this customer. They were a big manufacturer. They made these industrial buildings and I was trying to get their business. And this was probably 15 years ago, but it's a great story because it goes back to how I'll go to bat for you. But I used to go in and I would try to help them. I would try to diagnose problems that they were having. And this one account that I visited had a meeting. I went back to their manufacturing facility and they had some guys trying to work on one of these pumps that were pumping the material into their spray system. And they were having problems getting it worked. And I said, well, maybe I can help. And we kind of took it out and ended up getting we took it apart. I mean, I must have spent 2 hours helping them. I had always kept like a little small tool bag and we took the thing apart, diagnosed it, put it back together, put it in, got it working. In the process, got polyester resin, on my hands, you're cleaning it off and then it spilled on my shoes and I had dust and everything. And so I'm walking out of the plant at the end of the day. As I'm walking out, the owner of the company walks in as I'm almost about to exit the building. And he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? And he walked in and he goes, did these guys get this thing going? And I was like, yeah, we worked with them. And he looked down at my shoes and he's like, wow, you're not like other salespeople. Some of these guys come in like penny loafers or whatever, these shoes with with the pressed pants and everything. And they don't even touch a thing. They just kind of sit there and hand me a card and they walk out, and tell me they tell you what to do, but they don't show you what to do.
Right.
And so he was like, I've never seen a guy with shoes that look like that. And they didn't look that bad beforehand, but they look really bad after because I had the crap all over them.
Yeah.
Pretty much ruined a pair of shoes. And he said, he told me, he ended up giving me all the business. I won all the business there. But later on, he said, we were having lunch and he goes, the reason I bought from you is because I looked at your shoes. And I'm like, he actually gets dirty. This guy doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. Yeah. And helping other people, helping customers like me. So,
yeah, that actually fits 4 and 5, right? Because it's also I'm not who you think I am. Like I'm also
absolutely. I'm also a guy just
troubleshoot and
roll your
carry a bag of tools with me, like if needed.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a great story. So how would you like if you needed to throw that story in? How do you open up and start that story?
So I'm going to share the, so it depends on which story you're using. So are you talking about this one? The one?
Just for instance, the dirty shoe story.
Okay. The dirty shoe story. So typically what, you're, meeting a customer for lunch and, or you're meeting them for the first time and, it comes up in conversation. First of all, always keep the spotlight on the customer, what they're doing, how, what are some of their biggest problems, but then letting them know that, I always kind of hint the fact that I understand more about your process than you think I do. I'm not just some guy that specializes in selling this product. I try to look at myself as a physician or someone that diagnoses. And I said, I'm not going to sell you something you don't need. I'm going to look at your situation from a a consultant standpoint. Think of me as a consultant, not a salesperson. So I like to evaluate your whole process from start to finish. And I say, let me tell you some similar situations that I've been involved in. Dirty shoe story is one of them. I've done, there've been a number of those types of stories where you kind of fix their manufacturing or their production problems that they're having, and a lot of it has to do with equipment and things like that on the fly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those stories, but the dirty shoe story, the reason it sticks out is I actually had the customer tell me that was the reason he bought from me. And I say, I in in telling them about how I go in and typically diagnose what you're doing from start to finish. I said I can't make a recommendation until I see your process. Then that gives me all the information I need. I said I spend time, I'll get my hands dirty, I'll roll up my sleeves. Let me tell you about a story, of one of my customers who's been with me for 15 years. And he actually told me, he'll tell you he bought from me because of my dirty shoes. And then you're like, dirty shoes? What do you mean by that? And then you just go start telling him the dirty shoe story. So it just makes, I said, what, dirty shoes? They bought from you because of your dirty shoes? No, it's because of, I got my shoes dirty. I'm not afraid to get dirty. I'm not afraid to roll my sleeves up. So
yeah, it's a great pattern interrupt. There's a lot going on.
Absolutely. There. So you can say, and then also through, when you just throw in the podcast, I've helped customers or I've helped customers grow their business, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not just somebody that's trying to sell you something. I'm out there trying to promote your business if I think, there's a good fit. Well, how do you do that? Oh, well, let me tell you about a podcast I do, and then I start telling them, then I pull it up on the phone, show it to them, click on a play button. They hear it. They're like, and some of them are like, oh, wait, I know that show, and then sometimes it's new to them, but it's like you said, pattern interruption, find ways to break the pattern that they're used to of people that come in, present, do their spiel. They may have a story to sell, but they, what? It's like the old, the old saying, all politics are local. Everyone that buys, you have to think in a local framework. Every person that buys, you have to understand what their needs are and tell a story related to that. So,
right. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I want to share this quick before we move on to the next topic.
Okay.
I'm going to share kind of the framework that is used in the book. Let me share this here.
Need some tech music here going. While Jonathan figures out how to share his
window. Screen. I'm sharing a window or tab. Oh, here it is. Boom.
There
okay. All right. So this is this is kind of a little.
It's hard to see. Know. Can you make your window smaller?
Smaller or bigger?
Or are you sharing the whole screen? Like it's so wide that I think it's squished. There you go.
That works good. Too.
That's better.
Okay. So you start with a main objective, transition. Why should I listen to this story? This is kind of this is the beginning. Then you want to give the context. So the transition's the hook. How do you grab them? Context is where and when did it take place? Who is the hero and what did they want? Other background needed to understand the character's motivation. So remember, the hero in the story is always the customer. It's or typically the client or the customer. Challenge, what was the problem or the opportunity? Conflict, what did they do about it? The honest struggle between the hero and the villain. And then the resolution, how did it turn out? And that's where you have, if you can come up with a portfolio or just a little book of some different stories that you use that you can incorporate, it helped. But this is Paul Smith. I mean, this is his framework, and here's an example that you can use as an outline, and maybe I'll post it, but I couldn't find anything to post on the screen. But he says in the book, below is a story spine for the for these examples. It says, I think the best examples I've seen of this was, and then you go back in the blank, at the blank, there was blank, and they were trying to blank. Then one day blank. And so they blank, and then they blank, and then they blank. And eventually what I learned from this, and what I think you could learn, so you kind of get the idea. You start
Yeah.
out with the context, where it took place, who they were and what they needed,
Yep.
what the problem was, and then you just lay it out, conflict and how you overcame it. So
Yeah. Before you get rid of that screen, I want to try something. I want to see
Mhm.
what this little button does. Oh, okay. So that makes it a little bigger there. Interesting. Okay. Sorry for you listeners. I was playing with the StreamYard layouts. So
ah,
all right. Well, that's cool, man. There's and it really is important to practice these stories.
yeah,
One you have to capture them like you're talking about, whether you're using Evernote because you're old. I think that the kids are using Notion or something else these
yeah,
days.
yep,
But for us Gen Xers, we like Evernote.
yeah.
But you got to learn to capture the stories, then you got to learn to practice the stories so that
Mhm.
they come off nice and smooth and don't ramble on forever. Like you
Right.
need to,
Yeah,
and then intuitively,
yeah.
I think you kind of know, you have to kind of know where to drop them in, but you
Mhm.
do need to practice them a little bit
Absolutely.
to get them down.
And you need to craft here. The thing I was mentioning earlier, all politics are local. The example of that, you need to craft your story to the person. Sometimes if you're in B2B selling, we mistake the that the person, whether if it's the purchasing manager, and this has been my experience, whether it's a purchasing manager or a plant manager, that the story should always fit what's good for the organization. And that's not always the case, because just like all politics are local, all sales are local, and you have to understand who if you're selling to the purchasing agent, my experience is purchasing agents come and go, purchasing managers come and go. A lot of times they got one foot out the door.
Yeah.
They're either about to get fired or they're looking for the next big opportunity to move on. So a lot of times these people that you're selling to within the organization could care less about what's good for the organization, unless you're selling to the owner of a company.
Right.
And that's that, he cares about his bottom line. He cares about growing his business. But a lot of these people that are below, and it goes through kind of a multi-level
Right. You got
approach.
the floor manager, the shop
Yeah.
manager, whatever,
Yeah.
that's in there doing the work. And if the
Absolutely.
machine breaks down, he has a bad day.
Right.
You got the purchasing manager who's more
Right.
looking at the numbers and that kind of
Absolutely.
stuff. And then you got the CEOs kind of looking a little bit longer term, long range.
Mhm. Yep.
Three
Everybody's
very
got their
different.
own. Mhm.
Yeah. And every organization will let a different one of those three make the choice
Yep.
on the
Exactly.
buy.
So your challenge is always to identify if it's the purchasing agent, how you're going to make your story, share an example of a story of how you've made other purchasing agents' lives easier, and when it
Yeah.
comes to sourcing material, or when it comes to making them, saving the company money, obviously through through a better source. Okay. Or
Yep.
giving them solutions on how to make their life a whole lot easier, and without being such a headache. I've talked about it in the past about creating solution, or creating a system, like selling a system to them that is peace of mind system. So if you can sell peace of mind to these people who have headaches every day because somebody forgot to put the order in, somebody forgot to put the order in and they got to do expedites. I used to have customers that would do expedites because people would not put the order in at the right time. Well, I went to this is a great story. This is a great way of incorporating a story. I went to a purchasing manager and I tallied up all the expedites they had for 1 year. And that tallied over $20,000 just in expedites alone that they had to do,
Wow.
because they were ordering at the last minute, and it was costing them almost $1,000 at a time. And I went to him and I said, guess what? You're simply for not having a system set up in place and not having some kind of technology that we could help you with that creates an alarm system whenever your containers get too low, which we could do for you at a higher, a little bit higher cost, but you could avoid it. You can avoid $20,000 in expedite fees by simply incorporating this solution. And here's the reason. Here's the story. Let's look at the story of last year and how
Yeah.
you how you gave us about 20 expedites for the year that cost you a whole lot of money, and we could eliminate that. So,
And that's a great way to, differentiate yourself if it's a commodity type product, is to come up with something like that
right.
that you can offer.
Yep.
Some good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's do a couple quick hits of kind of things that caught my attention over the last couple of weeks. I don't use Evernote, but I use it a little bit, but in this particular thing, I use just the notes tab on my iPhone to capture these types of things for shows and things like that. So it's important that you've got some type of system to capture ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me share the screen here again. Yeah, that gives us a little bit more viewing space that way. All right, so this is it's called Greatness the Book, and I have no idea. I can't remember how I got here exactly. But
I've seen their ads on Facebook. Okay. This guy used to run. It's been a few months, but it seemed like it was back during maybe during the holidays. I used to see this guy's ad pop up on Facebook a lot.
Yeah. So he must
have been he would always start, would you pay $100 for this book? I just remember it.
Yeah. So he's he's got this book. It's called Greatness. You can see it's intentionally it's got this very high end high value type feel to it, or kind of luxury brand type feel to it. Plain white cover with just the word greatness in lowercase on it. And you go through and you're reading it. He's got some great endorsements from famous people, celebrity, using the celebrity thing. And then I noticed one of the first things he talks about is it comes with a display easel. You're like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
A book with a display easel. That's different,
That is a little unique.
Yeah. So it's like, wow, why would I want to display a book? Must be something about this book that I would want to display it. I don't know. Author signed, a lot of people like signed copies of books.
Sure.
And then I thought this one was really interesting. A sealed final chapter.
Wow.
So he's actually got the final chapter's got a piece of tape or little, round seal on it. It says, Dr. Cook has sealed the final chapter so readers take the time to think before investing in the powerful and personal conclusion to greatness.
Interesting.
I'm like, that's
pretty,
absolutely pointless, but it's very kind of creative and cool too at the same point.
It is. It's curiosity. It creates that curiosity.
And it's like, it does make you like, okay, is this really important, or is this, so yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And then you get to the price, it's $100 and you're like, whoa, I was expecting, $14.95, maybe $24.95.
Yeah.
And then it's $100 even, which we had somebody on the show who told us that even number pricing actually has a higher value than the 99s and 97s that we're so used to.
Yep.
So he obviously read that study as well. So yeah, I thought that was just interesting. Full disclosure,
I'm sure that you can't buy this on I'm Amazon. Sure you can't buy it on Amazon for sure. There's no other way to get it.
Yeah. So I don't think you can. I think I did check and it wasn't on there. But I just thought that was very interesting. Like he's probably a coach. So the book is kind of an entry point, and somebody that's willing to spend $100 for a book is probably a good client, good potential client anyway. So I think it's he's probably not going to have a bestseller on his hand at $100 a copy.
No, but that's not
the people that buy it are very highly qualified people.
Well, yeah, if they're willing to spend $100 on a book, they're investing. They know the value of investing in themselves,
right?
No matter what the price. So they have qualified themselves.
Yeah. So I thought it was very interesting, very interesting way to go about selling the book.
Mhm.
You could really do this with just about any lead magnet. Like, there's probably ways you could take the same idea and make it digital, because this is a physical copy that's going to get shipped, which you could make that true with
Mhm.
any book. You just get it printed. But it's just
Yes.
an interesting way. It's just thinking a little bit outside the box. I don't know how well the campaign did. Um, I haven't seen the ads in a while, so it may have bombed,
Mhm.
but it's definitely something worth considering and looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's all a book is, like we said. He's creating a high value or, a high end lead magnet. I mean,
And
that's
you
all
can
there is
tell
to
his
it.
target market is I mean, he says down here, like he's pretty much going after high end people. I mean, you see his
Yeah.
testimonials, you see, I've worked with PGA, NBA, NFL, and MLB, Olympics. So he's kind of going after that executive,
Mhm.
professional, those types of people. So it would make sense then that they would buy this type of book.
Right. Yeah.
So, so that was one
Absolutely.
thing I saw this week.
Mhm.
Another one that I sent you a couple weeks ago was this article from The Hustle
Mhm.
that I saw. It's called "How IKEA Tricks You into Buying More Stuff."
Yeah.
And if you've been to IKEA, you probably can guess. Um, but this was interesting. 6 out of 10 IKEA purchases are unplanned.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I can
high.
believe that. That is.
I mean, at the grocery store, you think about going to the grocery store, it's probably 10 to 20% maybe of the items are impulse,
Yep.
unplanned, if
Mhm.
that. So to have 60% of purchases be impulsive is pretty interesting.
Yep.
And basically, the way they did it, they showed typical um, layouts of department stores, grocery
Mhm.
stores, things like that. And then what they have is they have a gauntlet, basically. And Jonathan, this reminded me of the commissary in the military.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you remember, but at
Yeah.
least the commissary I was at, it was one way. All the aisles were one way,
Yep.
and you had to go up and down the aisles in
Mhm.
order.
Mhm.
That was more for efficiency. This is to get you to buy. And the big idea here is because it's one way and you can't really circle back very easily,
Mhm.
or it feels like you can't, you actually could, but it feels like you can't. What happens is you're like, if I pass this item, I don't want to have to trek all the way back through the store and find it again.
Mhm.
So let me just go ahead and throw it in my cart. I can decide later if I want it.
Ah, okay.
And then by the time you get there, you're now attached to this item that's been in your cart for an hour,
Sure.
because it takes
Yeah.
you 3 hours to get to the store.
Yep.
And now you go ahead and buy it. So the idea is it
Because you
creates
feel
some urge.
bad putting it back in a place it doesn't belong, right?
Right. And you don't want to go all the way back to the store. And you did kind of like it after all.
Sure.
And the other thing is you'll put it in your cart because you don't want to make the trek backwards. So
Yep.
I thought that's really kind of the biggest point is, so how, I don't know how exactly how you would apply that to, different businesses and different things. It's just a type of urgency
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
fear of missing out, that if I don't grab this now, I may
Yeah.
not be able to come back, or it's going to be too much hassle to come back.
Right.
So that's really all it is. Timers try to do that. They get into some psychological stuff.
Mhm.
Um, the Gruen effect, which is the layout of the store is so bewildering that it makes you forget the original reason you came there, leading to
Mm.
impulse buys. I think I do think that Home
The
Depot and
Gruen effect.
Lowe's,
Never heard of that.
I know that was a new one for me. Um, but I think that kind of happens in some of these big box stores, the really big ones, because
Yeah.
you go in Home Depot, you're looking for whatever, a box of screws.
Mhm.
And if you're not in there on a regular basis, if you're a homeowner, like if you're a contractor, you know where it is. You kind of run in, you get it, you come
Yeah.
out, maybe you grab something else. But for the most part, you kind of know what you're after and you can get it. But if you don't go in there every day, there's a lot of stuff going on, and you
Mhm.
kind of wander up and down the aisles trying to find the one
Right.
thing you're looking
Right.
for, and then you see the other stuff you just got to have.
Mhm.
But this is even more strategic than that because it feels like you can't go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're going up and down aisles in Home Depot, they're all laid out. You know you're going to come back past the same aisle that you
Right.
just went past, so
Yep.
you can try it again. So that's the big thing. These were some other things that I thought were very interesting. And I had not noticed this going through IKEA, but strategically placed mirrors so that you know how when you go through IKEA, they have the rooms set up, like the bedrooms, the dining
Yeah.
rooms.
Right. Right.
Apparently, they strategically place mirrors so that you see yourself in the room and then subconsciously like identify with being in that room.
Sure. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
That is wild.
It's like, man, there's so much going on.
Contextual positioning. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Rooms are set up exactly as they would be in a natural setting. So
Mm-hmm.
it feels like an actual room and not pieces of a room. Like, you know, if you go in Target in the furniture section, all the chairs are together, all the desks are together, you know, all the bookshelves are together down an aisle. But if you go to IKEA, they have these rooms set up. The whole room is furnished. It's got the lamp, it's got everything.
Sure.
So you see it in context. And you're like, yeah, that would look good on a nightstand. I never thought about that lamp on a nightstand, but that does look good together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go across the aisle, which is usually where they have either the stock or you pull a little certificate if it's a bigger thing so you can go get it in the giant warehouse. But if it's a smaller thing like a lamp, it's usually across the aisle and you go grab it. But it lets you see it in the right setting. You know, and a lot of companies are now trying to do that digitally with augmented reality where you can, you know, hold your phone in your room and it'll show the item in your space. So that's basically the digital version of what IKEA has been doing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dump bins, IKEA places overstuffed crates of dirt cheap products, toys, slippers, pillows, along the route to enforce the idea that its products are a good deal. So they have low price points, kind of like end caps, right? I mean, these are end caps in regular other stores where you like if you want to get a deal going through Target or Walmart or anywhere really, grocery store, shop the end caps, the end of the aisle. That's where they put all the sale items.
Yep.
Because that's what you're most likely to walk by if you're just trying to get through the store. So they put the lowest price stuff there to catch your attention. It's kind of like a subhead on a sales letter.
Sure.
It's there to kind of slow you down, grab your attention,
absolutely,
and get you to go in. So that's some of the that's some of the ideas. There's some other stuff here about IKEA. For instance, I thought this was interesting. They actually have dropped their prices over time, even with inflation.
Wow.
So their chair, their most famous chair, which it used to be in 1994 was $179, which would be $340 today with inflation, but today it's $129. So not only is it cheaper than it used to be, it's even way cheaper when you figure in inflation. And that's true for their most popular bookcase.
Yeah.
It was $82 in 1985. It's $50 today.
Sure. Yeah.
It's crazy.
That is crazy.
That's the other way to keep you buying is they just keep driving prices down. And then also, this was interesting. If you build your own stuff, you put a higher value on it than if you don't.
Oh yeah. Yep. We talked about that in the past.
Yep. So once you get it home, you think it's worth more than what you actually paid for it because you had to put it together.
Yep.
So those are some of the tricks that IKEA is playing on you. So don't be taken in, man. Plus they sell meatballs and stuff. So, and then
meatballs.
Yeah.
I didn't realize IKEA had a restaurant. I mean,
did not know that.
I did not know that. I don't go in IKEA very. I don't think I've been in IKEA in forever.
Well, there's not one in the Knoxville area, so
yeah,
that's part of it. Yeah, I actually think the restaurant gets a lot more hype. Like every time I've been to an IKEA, the restaurant's not very full. So I'm not sure why they get so much hype about the restaurant, but they do. All right. So the last thing I wanted to cover was this
alien swarm.
So this
drone swarm.
Yeah. So this is South by Southwest week or 2 weeks here in Austin.
Yes.
So we're staying away from downtown because there's like 250,000 extra people down there right now, which the city's loving because it's the first time in 2 years, 3 years, I guess we've had it.
Right.
But on Sunday night, apparently, I did not see it. I just saw the article afterwards. They created one of the who was it? Is it Paramount or Paramount Network? They have the new Halo series coming out, like the video game.
Oh yeah.
So what they did to promote it, they launched a giant drone swarm that formed a giant hovering QR code over the city of Austin.
That is crazy.
And it was 300 by 600 feet. So it's massive, goodness. two football fields wide and 300 feet tall. So it had a giant QR code just hovering up in the air that was scannable. And that actually, I tested this out. You can actually scan it on the picture on the computer. You
can scan that, okay.
And it'll pop up the Halo promotion.
I'm going to verify this.
Because I already tried it. Because I was like, I wonder if I could scan that. Sure enough, I could.
Look at that. Wow.
And then what they also did is...
That is crazy.
They did text with it as well. So it went crazy on Twitter. So you can't see it from that one. But yeah, after they did like Halo the Series e-streams, or Halo the Series streams March 24th. And then they did the Paramount logo as well with the swarm.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. But the comments on Twitter, so if you look up Halo drone swarm on Twitter, you'll see the comments are just like, sounded like a swarm of bees times 1,000. It felt like we're being invaded. It's like, oh my God, shoot me now. Like all kind. You can imagine the full response from everybody was like, is this good? Is this bad? Like one person was like, you could use this in warfare as a cyber attack because everybody would scan it if they saw it in the air.
Wow.
And you could infect everybody's phones instantly with the right code.
Gosh.
And it's like, yeah, you're kind of right. So,
yep.
So I think this is a cool marketing stunt, which is what you would expect for South by Southwest. But I can't see this ever like actually taking off, especially for the risk reasons.
Right.
I think people would get trained pretty quick not to scan it. If one big, malware attack happened, the stunt would be over.
Yeah. Yep. That would be it.
Yeah.
Done.
But and then I was like, this is crazy. It's polluting the sky. And I was kind of thinking about it, but I was like, this happens at the beach every time I go to the beach. When the little plane flies by with the banners that says "Eat at Joe's Crab Shack" or go wherever for dinner or whatever, concerts playing. Like you're sitting there on the beach, minding your own business, enjoying the waves, and all of a sudden, prop plane comes across with a giant banner, trying to sell you something. So. Nothing new, just new technology to make it happen. But it is kind of cool, and to think that you can organize that many drones to create a picture that is scannable. I mean, it is pretty interesting.
It is.
I can't remember.
My question is, how many people? Texas is an open carry state, right? I mean, how many people are taking shots?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully not too many. The bullets could land anywhere, so you wouldn't want that.
Wow! All right, what is this?
All right, so this is the last thing, and this is appropriate because I'm almost out of beer myself. This is one of the new emojis that got approved this week, and it's a pint glass. It is on its side. For those listening, it's a pint glass that's on its side. And it's pouring out the last little bit of, we don't know if it's wine, if it's blood, some type of reddish burgundy colored liquid is coming out of this glass. And that's one of the new emojis that just came out. So
wow,
that has nothing to do with persuasion, but it is a pint glass. So I thought it was kind of interesting.
Emoji being on, you can put it on your phone, right?
Yeah. I think it's one of the iPhone emojis. But there's a whole there's like a whole board that approves these emojis. So like a group of people said, yeah, that's a good one. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Of all the things submitted, that's one of the ones they were like, yeah, that's a winner. Let's use that. I mean, it
Yeah,
looks like
really.
one of those like magic trick type glasses that you would set on a table so it looks like a fake spill. That's what
Yeah.
it looks like. It doesn't look like. Also, a sliding board got approved.
Must have to update my phone because I don't see
Yeah,
those.
I think it's with the latest update.
Gotcha.
Some type of finger heart emoji, a mirror disco ball got approved. I can't believe that wasn't already one.
Yeah, really.
A lip bite. See where that's going. And then a troll got approved.
There's a lot of those nowadays, so that I'm
what's
actually
interesting
surprised that's not been around.
Yeah, but what's interesting is most people. Have you heard the new thing where what's it called? It's goblin mode. Have you heard about this?
Goblin? No.
It's when you decide to like just throw on some sweats and just eat and sit on the couch and do nothing. Basically, it's called going goblin mode.
Going
like
goblin.
You just,
okay.
You're just not going to take a shower, just eat, not dress up, like just goblin mode. So they actually think that that's what a lot of people are going to end up using this for.
Okay.
But it'll be interesting to see how people decide to use these different things. I think there was one more. Yeah, an empty jar was the last one. Empty mason jar.
Just an empty mason jar. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these are what people in our world think are important to improve in the emoji landscape. So,
who sits on this board of
I don't know, man.
Decision makers. I don't know.
It is it's kind of scary to think that there's people out there and they all together decide, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I was thinking the QR code, the drones making the QR code. Boy, there's a story right there that you could use for copy, right? I mean, you could use it in some way. I'm sure. I haven't thought, but
yeah,
I'm going to snag that and somehow incorporate that into some sales copy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the headline's good. The headline's great. Alien drone swarm.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
So alien straight out of the Globe or the Inquirer, but yet it's true. I mean,
it was the Hollywood Reporter, so close. From giant hovering QR code over Austin to promote Halo. Here's the subhead. I got scared and ran inside. Texas locals were very sleek, freaked out, annoyed, and impressed by a 600-foot wide drone swarm marketing stunt.
Yeah. Wow.
That's fun. Like somebody was literally scared and they ran inside. So probably not what you want for your marketing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I have to admit it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier. It's like the return of the QR code, right? It's back.
Right. It's back.
It's the biggest comeback of
I know.
of the last 10 years.
It's funny because they're incorporating that. It used to be a trend, or it was a starting trend for, I know some, so I talked with one company today that does these crazy, and they have like a really super niche market. It was on my podcast, but they make these composite urns for people that decide they're going to just, get burned instead of buried.
Yeah. I think it's called cremated is the appropriate term.
So
your Southern Baptist roots are showing, man.
These fancy urns, and you can get them personalized. So some of these are really nice. They're like composite marble that you would display on your on your fireplace mantle. You put it up there. But anyway, you can personalize these now with QR codes and everything, so people can just scan it. It ties to like a video or a video story of your life.
That is wild.
It's right up there, printed on the printed on that little urn, that little block urn. So,
I wonder if I can get a QR code tattoo that linked to like. Instead of handing out a business card, you're just like, no, scan my code.
Scan my arm. Hey, there's an idea. That's a great idea.
As long as the service doesn't go out of business that hosts it, That's
right.
You'd be all right. But
very cool.
When it does, it's like, 2022. It was cool back then.
And the resurgence of QR codes, because this is nothing new, but I think it's the technology. Used to be, we talk about like in marketing, like the more things that you challenge me that I have to do, the worse your marketing is, right? The more
Right.
resistance you're creating with the customer. So
Yeah.
what was kind of why did QR codes falter in the beginning? Well, you had to download a special app
Right.
for a you had to download a QR
Now,
reader.
now the camera knows.
Now the camera's automatic. Your
Yeah.
your built-in camera automatically can look at a
Yep.
QR code and pull it down instantly. So
And everybody knows how to pull up their camera
that's right.
almost instantly, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
all you got to do is pull up the camera, hold it, and
Mhm.
it knows it.
Yep.
So yeah, so the camera got smarter.
Yep. Camera got smarter and less resistance, less friction. And the less friction you create in your marketing, the more people will, take advantage or do what you want. So
yeah. But I have to give it to the people at Paramount, for doing this giant QR code. It worked. Like, it got attention.
Well, it got attention for sure. I mean, you
and
look
that's
up in the air
hardest
and you
part.
see something like that. Wow.
I would have loved to have seen that, just the scale of it. I mean, so they said it was like 300 feet tall, which is the height of the Statue of Liberty for perspective. So
that's crazy.
That's a big, even if it's up in the air, that's a big code. I mean, and you can kind of tell looking at the picture on the website. It's bigger than the buildings below it. So
wow,
it's big. I mean, 300 feet is a 30-story building.
Yeah, that's
hovering in the air. So that is kind of like an alien spaceship coming.
Yeah,
coming after you. So good on them. I mean, like I said, I don't know how many times you could get away with something like that. Like, it's kind of but it could be great for festivals. It could be great for that kind of thing.
Sure.
Where there are large groups gathered. But again, I think the one comment I read was kind of right. Is like, you got to be wary before you just scan that and click on the link, because you don't actually know where it's going.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
So they may have to put more text around it to tell people where it's going. But even then, that could be faked. So
right.
All right, we beat that one to death. But good stuff. Good stuff this week.
It was. Yeah. Good flight for this week. So enjoyed it. To all of our listeners, you can find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your platforms: Stitcher Radio, iHeart, Spotify, you name it. Or maybe we should come up with a QR code that you can just click on. You can just hit it.
We need an audio QR code. An audio
QR
QR code that'll take them to the YouTube video.
There you go. That's good. I like that.
It's got to be it's got to be possible, right? You hold your phone up to the audio sound, and it would take you to a website.
Well, what is it? Shazam. What is it? What is that? Shazam?
Yeah,
Shazam.
It used to be Shazam. Yeah.
Well, I still use that for whenever I hear a song that I cannot remember. What do? I go to Shazam.
So there's an idea for somebody, because I'm not going to do it, but audio QR codes.
Yep. Who is that? Boom. Hold it up.
There's just this weird sound, and like it would just take you to wherever it need to go. That'd be kind of cool.
It would be. Well, guys, we enjoyed it. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.
All right. Good stuff.